The air in the briefing room at Firebase Talon was thick with the smell of diesel and nervous sweat. Master Sergeant Rex Bulldog Riley, a man whose face looked like it had been carved from sandstone, kicked a discarded roll of gauze across the concrete floor. It stopped at the boots of Dr. Aris Thorne. "Clean that up, Doc," Riley grunted, his voice a low rumble of gravel. "Wouldn't want you to run out of supplies for all the boo-boos you'll be treating." A few of the younger soldiers in his squad snickered. Aris, her auburn hair pulled back in a severe, regulation-perfect French braid, didn't flinch. She simply knelt, her movements economical and precise. Her gaze, a cool, analytical gray, met Riley's. There was no anger in her eyes, only a quiet, unnerving stillness. "Of course, Sergeant," she said, her voice calm and even. As she picked up the gauze, Riley leaned in, his shadow falling over her. "Just remember your place out there, Thorne. We do the fighting. You stick to the bandages." He then tossed a bloodied training bandage near her feet, a deliberate act of disrespect. "Practice on that." Aris rewound the clean gauze with a fluid efficiency that was almost hypnotic. Her fingers moved with a practiced discipline that had nothing to do with medicine. It was the same meticulous care a watchmaker might use, or a bomb disposal expert. She placed the roll back into her medical pack, each item within it arranged with an almost obsessive-compulsive order. Tourniquets, chest seals, hemostatic agents, all positioned for immediate, blind access in the heart of chaos. The other soldiers saw a medic. They didn't see the years of training that had honed those hands to perform under unimaginable pressure. They didn't see the ghost of a different kind of discipline in her eyes. Riley saw a woman playing soldier. He had no idea he was looking at a weapon holstered in plain sight. Captain Rodriguez, a man whose authority was worn as comfortably as his uniform, entered the room, and the casual mockery evaporated. "Listen up. Convoy run to Outpost Sentinel. Medical resupply. Intel says the route is cold, but we're not taking chances." His eyes scanned the room, lingering for a moment on the tension between Riley and Aris. He didn't comment, but a small note was made. The convoy consisted of 3 heavily armored MATV trucks. Aris found herself in the second vehicle with Private Leo Kid Evans, a fresh-faced 19-year-old whose knuckles were white on the grip of his rifle. "First time heading into the Serpent's Pass?" Aris asked gently, her voice losing its clinical edge. Leo swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "Yes, ma'am. Heard stories. They're just stories until they're not," she replied, pulling a small, advanced-looking device from her kit. It was a portable biomonitor. "Here, clip this to your finger. It'll help me keep an eye on your vitals without bothering you. And chew this." She offered him a piece of gum. "Keeps the mouth from going dry. Focus on your sector, control your breathing. Your training will take over if it needs to." Her tone was reassuring, but her actions were tactical. She had chosen her seat not for safety, but for the optimal field of fire, a detail lost on the nervous private. As the Mavs rolled out of Firebase Talon, the landscape shifted into the desolate, rock-strewn canyons of the Alcarif Desert. The road, known as the Serpent's Pass, twisted through jagged cliffs that offered 1,000 perfect ambush points. The silence on the radio was heavy, a held breath before a scream. Leo kept glancing at Aris. He saw her eyes constantly scanning the ridgelines, her head moving in small, methodical arcs. She wasn't just looking. She was assessing, calculating angles, identifying cover. She was reading the terrain like a predator, and the young private felt a strange sense of security that had nothing to do with her medical bag. The explosion was a physical blow, a deafening roar that ripped the world apart. The lead MATV was tossed into the air like a toy, engulfed in a blossom of fire and black smoke. The IED had been perfectly placed. Before the shockwave had even dissipated, the trap was sprung. The crackle of automatic fire erupted from the cliffs on both sides. This wasn't a random potshot. It was a coordinated L-shaped ambush. Rounds hammered against the Mav's armor like a hailstorm. Contact left. Contact right. Vehicle 1 is gone. The radio became a cacophony of panicked voices. Aris was already moving. Complex ambush. Gunners, suppress high ground. Driver, find cover. Her commands were instantaneous, clear, and tactical, cutting through the chaos. Then, a high-caliber round punched through the gunner's turret on Riley's vehicle. A choked cry came over the radio. "I'm hit. Riley's hit. My shoulder. I can't lift my rifle." Another burst of fire raked the convoy, and Captain Rodriguez's voice came through, strained and weak. "I'm hit leg, femoral." Aris's mind processed the information with terrifying speed. Femoral artery. 3 minutes to live. Riley, the primary fire support for their vehicle, was out of the fight. They were pinned in a perfectly designed kill zone. "Leo, cover me!" she yelled, and before the private could protest, she was out the door, moving low and fast. She didn't run in a straight line. She used a bounding Overwatch movement, sprinting from the scant cover of one rock to another, rounds kicking up dust inches from her feet. It was the movement of a seasoned infantryman, not medic. She reached Riley's truck, wrenched open the door, and immediately applied a high-end tight tourniquet to his mangled shoulder, her hands a blur of motion. Even in his agony, Riley stared at her, bewildered by the speed and ferocity of her actions. She wasn't just treating him. She was simultaneously scanning the ridgelines, her eyes missing nothing. "We're losing fire superiority," someone screamed over the net. The enemy fighters were starting to advance, flowing down the slopes like fire ants. "Captain's vitals are crashing," Leo reported, his voice trembling. "He's bleeding out." The situation was spiraling into a death trap. They were outgunned, pinned down, and losing leadership. The enemy was methodical, disciplined, and closing in for the kill. Riley, his face pale and slick with sweat, grabbed Aris's arm with his good hand. His eyes, stripped of their earlier arrogance, were now filled with raw desperation. "Thorne, take my rifle. You have to suppress them. We're all dead if you don't." Aris looked from his pleading face to the M4 rifle lying on the floor of the truck, then to the advancing fighters. The Hippocratic oath, "First, do no harm," was seared into her soul. It was the reason she was here, the reason she had traded a rifle for a scalpel. "Sir, I'm medical personnel," she stated, the words tasting like ash. "Geneva Convention protections. They're not reading the damn convention." Riley roared, "They're killing us." From behind a neighboring vehicle, another soldier, Diaz, was staring at Aris. He'd seen her sprint across the open ground. He'd seen the way she held herself, even while treating Riley. A flicker of a memory, something from a sports channel years ago, sparked in his mind. "That stance," he muttered, his mic still hot. "The way she holds her center of gravity. I've seen that before." The enemy was now less than 100 meters away. In seconds, they would be close enough to use grenades. It was over. The choice was no choice at all. Sometimes, to save a life, you had to be willing to take one. Aris's hands, which had been so gentle on Riley's wound, closed around the rifle. The transformation was instantaneous and absolute. The healer vanished, and the hunter emerged. Her entire posture shifted, her body settling into a stance of impossible stability. "Leo, get to the captain. Pressure dressing now. Follow the protocol," she commanded, her voice devoid of all emotion. It was the voice of a commander. She moved to the front of the MATV, using the engine block as a stable platform. The rifle came up to her shoulder as if it were an extension of her own body. Her world narrowed to the front sight post. Breath, hold, squeeze. The first shot was almost silent amidst the din of battle. A fighter 150 meters out dropped mid-stride. Before he hit the ground, Aris had already acquired her next target. A second shot. Another fighter fell. It wasn't panicked firing. It was a cold, methodical execution. Controlled pairs. One shot, one kill. The advancing enemy line faltered, confused by the sudden, lethally accurate fire. They were being dismantled. Riley watched from the floor of the truck, his jaw slack with disbelief. This wasn't a soldier. This was an artist of violence. The enemy machine gunner, emboldened, rose to get a better firing angle. It was a 300-meter shot, nearly impossible with iron sights. Aris took a single calm breath. The rifle cracked. The gunner collapsed. During the recoil of that shot, a small, custom-made tag tucked inside her collar came loose. It was not a standard-issue dog tag. It was circular, gold, and it caught the harsh desert sun for a fraction of a second. Diaz saw it. The memory clicked into place with the force of a physical blow. "Holy Christ!" he screamed into the radio, his voice cracking with awe and disbelief. "It's her. That's Aris Thorne, the Olympian. London. 3-position rifle. She set the goddamn world record." A profound, echoing silence fell over the friendly radio net. Every surviving soldier stopped firing for a second, their minds struggling to process the impossible truth. The quiet, condescendingly named Doc they had mocked was a living legend. One of the greatest marksmen the world had ever seen. The Taliban assault shattered. Faced with a ghost who couldn't miss, they broke and ran, dragging their wounded. Moments later, the thumping roar of Apache helicopters filled the sky, their chain guns finishing the work Aris had started. The instant the immediate threat was gone, Aris dropped the rifle as if it were poison. She was Dr. Thorne again. "Give me vitals on all wounded. Prep for case vac," she ordered, her voice once again that of a calm medical professional. In the field hospital days later, Riley, his arm in a complex sling, found her typing an after-action report. He stood before her, humbled and broken. "Why?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. "Why hide that? You could have been anything." Aris looked up from her laptop, her gray eyes holding a deep, weary sadness. "Because I joined to save lives, Rex. Not to take them. I wanted to be defined by who I could heal. You saved 9 of us today," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "By doing what had to be done." He then stood as straight as his injuries would allow and rendered a slow, deliberate salute with his left hand. A week later, a full bird colonel from SOCOM found her. "Dr. Thorne," he said, getting straight to the point, "we're creating a new Tier 1 unit. Medics who can provide surgical-level care in the heart of the fight. Operators who can heal, and when necessary, protect. We call it the Asclepius program. Your name came up." He left a card on her table. Aris looked at it for a long time. She had tried to bury one part of herself to let the other live. But out there, in the Serpent's Pass, she had learned they were two sides of the same coin. The story of the medic who picked up a rifle became a legend in the Al-Kharif desert. A reminder that the greatest warriors are sometimes the most reluctant ones. In a life-or-death situation, should the duty to heal ever be set aside for the need to protect? What would you have done in her place? Share your thoughts below, and always comment respect.